Shattered by Eric Walters. Chapter 7. Mac walked me to a fairly busy intersection. There were lots of cars and people, regular people, couples, walking hand in hand, and groups walking along the sidewalk, going to or from restaurants or the theater or maybe the movies or shopping. We had traveled only about 5 blocks, but we'd left behind one world and entered another, one much more familiar to me. Mac had offered to stay and wait with me for my ride, but I told him to go on his way. He still had to finish his rounds. I'd used my cell phone to call home, and I'd spoken to Berta. My parents still weren't home, and she was on her way down to get me. I watched the cars driving by. Half of them had bluish lights. Those were the type that expensive luxury cars like Mercedes, BMWs, Audis, and a dozen other types of prestige cars all had. It was amazing how many expensive cars there were. How many people had so much money to spend? And as I stood there, watching and waiting, I wondered, how many of those people driving in those expensive cars passed by the parks and alleys where the homeless were sitting or shuffling or sleeping, and never knew that there was anybody outside of the climate-controlled, leather-seated, CD-surrounded sound that encircled them? How could some people have so much and others so little? There was a gentle beep of a horn, and a silver Mercedes rolled to a stop. It was Berta driving my mother's car. At night or on long trips, she'd often drive my mother's car because her own car was so old that it wasn't particularly reliable. I grabbed the door and pulled it open, jumping inside without disturbing the flow of traffic too much. It was good to get into the car and out of the rain that had started falling more heavily. Wet and near freezing temperature was a bad combination. "Hello, Eon. Thanks for coming to get me," I said as I snapped on my seatbelt. Berta pulled away. "I'm sorry to make you come out so late. I thought my parents would be home by now. They got home just before I left. I offered to go because they looked tired." Tired. That meant they'd both probably been drinking. I doubted that it involved anything with a screw top. "Did you have a good evening?" Berta asked. I don't know if good is the right word. We were passing Selby Park. "You see that park there?" I said, pointing to the scene rolling by outside the passenger window. "There are people who live in there." Berta nodded, but didn't answer. "Really, and serious. They have tents and chairs, and there's a bunch of them sitting around a fire right now." "And how do you know that?" she asked. That was stupid. I shouldn't have said anything. "Is this just between me and you?" I asked. "If that's what you want, Eon." I know I could trust Berta. I was with Mac, the man who runs the soup kitchen. I went with him on one of those walks he does every night to look out for people who are living on the streets. Mac told me there are thousands and thousands living on the streets, I explained. Berta shook her head in disbelief. Thousands. So hard to believe. I only see a few. That's what I said. Tonight I saw them, where they live in alleys and dumpsters and parks. "These are not good places for you to go," Berta said. "Maybe it is better that your mother doesn't know about these things." "I'm not telling her. She probably wouldn't believe it, even if I did tell her." "She might believe. There are homeless everywhere. That is how it is in Guatemala." The park disappeared from view. I hadn't really thought about that. "Are there many?" "Many thousands." "I didn't know that. I figured it was just like Mexico and there weren't many street people." Berta laughed. "They do not have beggars in the fancy resorts where you and your family stay. They are hidden like here, the same way. At least in Guatemala they don't have to worry about freezing to death like they do here. Freezing to death is not what they fear." "What do they fear?" Berta didn't answer. She stared straight ahead out the windshield, the wipers moving silently across the glass to clear away the rain that had gotten even harder. "Berta, what do they have to fear?" She still didn't answer right away, and I thought she wasn't going to when she started. "In my country, people on the street die all the time. I guess even in a warm country you can still starve to death. They do not starve. They are killed. Dozens and dozens maybe hundreds, maybe more. They are gunned down. I could scarcely believe what she was saying. Can't the police or the army protect them? The police and army? Berta sneered. Who do you think does the killing? That can't be right. Right it is not. True, it is. I should not be telling of these things. Not now. Not yet. Why not? It is too soon. I'm almost 16, Berta. I can handle it. It is not that it is too soon for you, Ian. It is too soon for me.